Seems a heart attack. I told him you don't have to come. He wants to come.
Last Thursday, when we had that big storm that come through here, I was calling bingo this time, so I was yelling into the microphone for the people.
Oh, my goodness. All right, everybody ready?
Yes.
It is 6:30, and we're calling our regular meeting, Elgin City Council, Tuesday, March the 21st, 2023, 6:30 p.m. And we will begin with calling the roll. And we'll start with Dennis.
Dennis here.
Frazier here.
McShann here.
Kasnovsky here.
Gibson here.
Swain here.
Mondato here.
And Matthew lost his mother-in-law, so he is out. And Al is out of town with school business, so we need a motion for those two to be excused.
So moved, Mayor.
I'll second.
It's been moved in second. Begin with Frazier.
Frazier, yes.
McShann, yes.
Kasnovsky, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Swain, yes.
Mondato, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Alrighty. And we'll have our invocation by Councilman Swan.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the rain, and thank you for moving the ice out of the area. Please watch over our crews while they continue the cleanup and ensure no one is injured. Please watch over our deliberations tonight. Guide us to make the best decisions for our Elgin community. Even though we may not agree on every decision, we can and will be civil and arrive at a consensus, unlike the federal. Please continue to watch over our growing Elgin community and our first responders. In your blessed name, amen.
Amen. Join me with the pledge of allegiance. Next, we have our public comment, and I don't have anything, so there are no public comments tonight. And we'll begin with the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. First item on the report is to discuss a topic that we've discussed on a number of occasions over the last couple of years about the what we call the Y intersection down here at Main Street and Harris Street, where there's been a number of concerns expressed about safety, and the city has tried to work with TxDOT for some time to address those issues. And I think there's a couple things that's worth noting at this point, which makes it a challenging situation for the city. That makes it a little unusual, and that is the fact that Loop 109, like Highway 290, is owned, controlled, and under the exclusive jurisdiction of TxDOT. And as the owner of that roadway with the responsibility for it, even though these roads are within the city limits, they cannot, there's no improvements that can be made without TxDOT's approval or authorization. And in addition, TxDOT is also bound by state law, which requires any traffic control device, such as lights, signs, speed zones, to be supported by a warrant study, which is an engineering study that gauges traffic counts, numbers, speed, all those things. The whole process is intended to provide an objective decision-making process about traffic control devices and not have those be political decisions. So it's important to understand that the city of Elgin is, even though it's within our city limits, we're legally precluded from making any improvements on Main Street or Loop 109, State Route 95, or Highway 290. We can partner with TxDOT, but we can't compel those things to be done. It's also important to note, we hear this come up periodically, it's not a financial issue. This isn't about resistance on the city's part to invest in funds to make these improvements occur. We've already expressed a willingness to help address cost if that was an issue, and it's simply not from a TxDOT standpoint, or at least they haven't expressed that to this point, which is why we're still kind of at their mercy to work with them. Now, in that regard, we have worked with TxDOT over the years. A number of different city officials, including our current mayor, has met with TxDOT officials, along with the staff, along with the city engineer, to try to see what we can do to make improvements in that intersection. And to date, the analysis that TxDOT has done on that intersection continues to demonstrate that a traffic light or any significant traffic safety improvements or devices there are not warranted. They don't meet the standards. However, last year, as we've continued to talk with TxDOT, they came back to us after one of our more recent requests and proposed an improvement to that intersection that we're calling Plan A here. This was a plan that the council looked at about a year ago that was proposed by TxDOT that they were willing to make, and in this case, they were willing to forego the entire cost for it. It wouldn't cost the city anything. However, TxDOT's position has been they don't want to make this type of improvement unless it's endorsed or desired by the city council. So we brought this forward to the city council. The city council reviewed it at that time, and it got a lukewarm response, I'll just say, from the council as to a plan for improvement there, and the council at that time had asked for the possibility of developing an alternative plan. So we set about that effort with TxDOT and with the staff, and reached a point where they were willing, from their perspective, this was the only plan that they could come up with that meets their rules and requirements that they were willing to do at this time. But after working with them a little bit, and we proposed to them that what if the city came up with our own idea about a better plan for this intersection. And so our city engineer put his pencil to it and came up with this plan, Plan B. As you can see, kind of the concepts are the same. Instead of have a continuous intersection, it'll have a dedicated stop bar for one low flow of traffic. But as you compare the two, excuse me, A basically was going to compel the Harris Street traffic to come to a stop at this intersection, and Main Street would continue through traffic. Under Plan B, though, the Harris Street traffic will come to a stop. Oh no, I've got that wrong. The Main Street traffic will stop at this bar, and the Main Street traffic will have a continuous flow to it. So essentially, we're here tonight to decide what we want to do. TxDOT has since reviewed our proposed Plan B, and they find it acceptable, but they still want an endorsement from the city council. What I will say is that I really think we're down to an either-or decision if we're going to do anything with this intersection. It's going to be one of these plans or the other one. We're not remotely close to traffic counts or warrants that would allow us to put a signal at this intersection or to make it a three-way stop. But with this type of design, actually with either type of design, it does set the intersection up for, at a future date, if traffic continues to grow, then a three-way stop here is possible, or a traffic light. So in my view, it's really, we're down to just making an either-or decision, and TxDOT is, the good news about this project too is that the TxDOT district office believes they can do all the work themselves. So it's not like a major project that has to go through the whole funding process that can take a year to get done in TxDOT's process. So they're ready to do it in a short period of time. We just need to tell them which plan we like, or if we don't like either plan, we'll just live with what's out there today. So,
Can I go
That-
first?
yeah, I'm done.
I didn't even give Plan A a lukewarm reception, because I feel like if we just open up 1704 straight onto Main and a straightaway, you're giving everybody a drag strip. And so I don't think there was any kind of concept of traffic calming in that one. I really like Plan B because although we can't have a light, it does offer in both directions some sort of traffic calming. You have a curve where there's not a stop sign, and then you have a stop sign where I think is the best place we could offer a stop sign for this plan. So I really don't like Plan A at all, but at least with Plan B, like I said, both ways, there's some sort of traffic calming device, whether it's the curb or a stop sign, that would help slow traffic down there, for now.
I would agree. I like Plan B much better because it does slow the traffic down coming in on 1704. I think that the collision course that's right there in front of the mayor's house is removed in this plan. And I think that this is good. My question would be, is TxDOT going to do traditional curbing and all, or is this just going to be soft sides and people going to be able to cut corners and that sort of thing because there's no curbing?
Yeah, I don't think there's any intent to put curb and gutter in there, do you, Bo?
They'll pull up asphalt there, so you probably can't drive over.
Yeah, so generally TxDOT won't put anything above grade like an actual stand-up curb. Some of the things that could be incorporated would be like the giant buttons that you would see that are almost like speed humps instead of the curbs. Those are things that they will put in there. The intent is the hatched area for them to kind of remove that asphalt and return it to natural grade, but to remove the asphalt so it's not actually a drivable surface. So when you look at Plan B or even Plan A, that hatched area isn't really going to be striped per se. It's actually going to have that asphalt removed completely and turned, back to grass essentially. But I would think anything that doesn't add a ton of capital, we've talked about a flashing stop sign, them trying to do a solar flashing, which they were kind of open to. But things like the buttons and that kind of thing to help as well, those are low impact items that they would probably put in there. You could probably go even as far as the delineators like they're gonna do on FM 1100, the stand-up things that you've kind of seen out there at Walmart around that curve to even make sure someone doesn't try to go straight on through. Those types of things the local office can do. In fact, the local office is actually gonna do the ones on FM 1100 themselves out there. So those are some things I think could enhance it to downtown area, and that's really what you're setting up between the option A or B. Is it people coming in from FM 1704, or that generally then turn to 290, or is it the ones coming in from Harris Street or from 290 coming into downtown? And consider what you think as we continue to grow in the future of which one you would prefer to have that right of way going in to really judge your decision on.
Yeah, I think as far as wayfinding and that sort of thing, that Harris Street really makes a better entry point into the city rather than 1704, and that really designates that that's what this is.
I agree. I was just, to your question, Bo, about 1704, 290, has there been any traffic studies showing how much traffic is coming, entering, or leaving on both of those routes? I'm just curious.
TxDOT's done some counts because we've had them do those counts to see, are we at a warrant for the light? As of today, we're far short of that warrant. As you can remember, we discussed trying to funnel traffic. 1704 is kind of iffy because some of those trucks do come down and make the turn like they're supposed to. There are other trucks that go ahead and go down Ramirez, depending, or traffic will cut up Ramirez instead of coming around to this particular. So that all affects the traffic counts, you're probably not getting it true, but I do not have those up-to-date numbers. It's probably been about 6 months since the last time we kind of saw from what TxDOT did out there, but it does fall way short of the warrant for the light, but it does give you an idea of where that traffic's coming from the two
I think
different.
that's just it, yeah, where the traffic, because my sense is, yeah, like slowing down the traffic coming in and out of 1704 makes sense to me, but was just curious about the numbers.
Especially with our truck route, it makes them stop and make that decision to turn left rather than right. And we could probably say, put a truck route sign there that points it that direction
Absolutely.
as well.
And council has approved a truck route, which TxDOT has also approved as well. And so, and thinking of the other alternative, this makes it a little bit, a truck driver to go downtown when coming in on 1704 is literally making that decision that they're kind of going against the truck route per se, as opposed to coming straight down and forgetting to get over to the left hand as it is today. But all things to consider.
With that sharp angle, is it feasible for a truck, a large truck, to make that left turn?
Yeah,
Without
so,
problem?
don't get me wrong, TxDOT will do their own little design, but we laid this out per their standards to show, would this be a feasible option? So it's actually gone back through their engineering group, who's then come back down to the district office to say, yes, this is a feasible option for our on-road systems if you wanted to consider it. So there shouldn't be any pushback or whatnot. I can't say that those lines will be exactly where they're at, but it has gone through their engineering department, who's approved it essentially at this
Yeah,
point.
because- and one more question. Since there's a curb right there, I can't remember where the privacy fence is across the road, so if somebody stops, they're gonna be able to be seen back up the road towards town.
And again, that's all with the sighting distance. They looked at all of that and have gone through, but you can actually, if you stand out there, if you're brave enough to stand out there and take a look both ways, you do have plenty of sight distance back up that way, just with the elevation. So, exactly where that stop bar ends up being, it might be, 10 feet back or 5 feet back, but they've looked into all of that as far as an acceptable alternative.
That curve you're talking about, Chuck, you're talking about right there by the processing plant?
Well, if you come up 1704.
It's gonna be further down.
Talking about that, man.
No, you're talking about right
You
there.
hit the stop sign right there, can a truck easily make that left-hand turn
Coming here, yeah.
and come back out of the truck route? If you make the right-hand turn, you're going downtown, not in the truck route, and you're.
Right.
Right.
And you can kind of see how the right-hand turn is a little bit wider. So essentially, without getting too deep into the weeds, we looked at different wheelbases, what TxDOT would design a highway. So if it's a wheelbase 55-foot semi-truck, it should be able to make the turn based on the traffic movements. Obviously, there's always exceptions to the rule. Someone comes in with a 72-foot, which isn't per TxDOT design, then yeah, they'll get a little off, trying to make that. But as far as the design criteria for TxDOT, yes, they should be able. Now, there's obviously better drivers and worse drivers when it comes to that. But as far as what you would see as your typical traffic that should be utilizing that road and making the turn, yes.
Well, our ultimate goal should be that those trucks should come down 95 and to 290 and eventually
Absolutely.
learn that, and not even
And
be
then what
coming to
about the
this
one
intersection.
right below that other turn?
This one?
Same
Yeah.
thing, it's been the exact same design for essentially a truck that TxDOT would consider, coming down there. We all know that a lot more trucks are coming down this road when the truck route does send them through 95, and they're not supposed to be coming through this route. But it meets TxDOT's criteria. And so I don't want council making a decision based on people that aren't following the truck route or going outside the permitted drives that they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, sign doesn't work though.
I'll just follow up with a few things. Number one, for Plan A, TxDOT had made the commitment that they would fund that whole project. They haven't made the same exact commitment here, so it may require us to contribute some funds, but as Bo said, we'd already talked about, what about the flashing stop signs, what about these other delineators? So we'll be having that conversation with them, and there may be ways we can help out and improve it. As far as traffic counts go, in the 6 years I've been here, I think they've done counts out there 2 or 3 times. So they tell us, obviously, it's continuing to grow, but it's kind of the count is a simple precursor to doing a full-blown study. And based on their analysis, yes, as Bo said, they've told us we're not even close on the count, so it just isn't worth the effort to do the full-blown study. So they do have some criteria that way, but
Just to
not a lot.
clarify, that the counts was just to see where traffic is coming from. Like,
Yeah, well,
is it
really
more
just
traffic-
counting who's coming through the intersection,
Yeah.
how many vehicles are coming
Right,
through the
so are more
intersection.
vehicles coming from 1704 or from?
Yeah, I'm not sure if
Paris?
they count it that way, it's just count the whole
They
intersection.
they'll break it out from all directions and peak hours and non-peak hours and whatnot, but at the end of the day, it is kind of an overall, what is going through that particular intersection to distinguish, can it go to a light?
And I, again, just want to clarify, TRC developed this plan 3 months ago, and we sent it back to TxDOT, so as he said, it's run through their entire system, because we told them we weren't going to bring this to council until they signed off on it, and so yeah, they're fully committed to this plan. They've done all the analysis they need to do, but before they started, they just want to make sure council supports it.
So one other, let's just play scenario, a truck decides they don't like this route. So what are their alternatives then?
They should be using the route which is 95. That's the
Shouldn't be
actual
here at all
ordinance.
anyway.
It's
Yeah.
in an ordinance and dedicated that is the truck route, and so when those trucks are driving on the roads, they're permitted, they have a DOT number, they know where they're supposed to be allowed to drive within the city of Elgin and where they're not. So generally, when they're beyond that, they're outside of their permits to be even coming down the road. And again, enforcement is the only way that actually gets really addressed as you start shoveling out tickets and comparing where their permitted route is. But the city went through great lengths, went through TxDOT, got it all approved. They put up the signs and stuff, but there actually is a map that says, okay, these are the roads from a truck perspective that you can and can't be doing, other than your farmers coming in and things of that nature. But if there's a project out on FM 1704 or subdivision under construction and they're hauling gravel and stuff, they're not supposed to be coming through these particular areas.
And so I'm thinking like, gravel truck's got a job and he's doing 3 weeks up and down 1704, and I'm like, he doesn't like this intersection, so I'm just saying, is he turning, are we anticipating he's gonna be turning onto Ramirez potentially, and do we need to then revisit that intersection? And I say that because somebody reached out, a constituent from that area, and so just thinking down the line, is this gonna push more traffic down Ramirez, because then we may need to revisit that one again.
There was a lot of that conversation. when we
Yeah.
talked about the
That's
areas.
why we made that, we made some recommendations about Ramirez at the time, and that was consideration. I think, again, the whole issue, the truck route's the same thing. Yeah, it's pushing traffic in different places. At some point, as Bo's saying, if you're a professional truck driver, it's an obligation on you to find the best route, and you should be aware of these things. Now, the other part, too, is to keep in mind, if there's a school being built in town, trucks are allowed to come into town. If you've got business in town, you're not prohibited if they're making it. The dollar store is getting an 18-wheeler coming down here. It's not against the law for them to come and make this turn and come into downtown because they have business downtown. So that's the other part too, that we're still, just because you see a truck on Main Street doesn't necessarily mean they're in violation of the truck route. So it's just another situation. And I think frankly, I think this conversation, this intersection's a real indicative of the whole situation. We can't make it perfect there without rebuilding the entire thing.
I have one other question. Remind me when we're coming down Main Street to 1704, what is the current speed limit?
25.
40.
So
They
if I'm
raised it,
going-
it's 40.
If I'm going 40 around this curve and someone's turning to go on to 1704, that's a little bit of a concern for me. Because I know it's not a blind curve, but like if you're going 40 and someone has to stop to make that turn waiting for the right-of-way that's given to Harris, I feel like that can be an issue.
If you got plenty of vision, you should be able to see it.
That's just,
And the problem now, okay, so let's get back to what the problem is. The real problem is we have too many wrecks in front of my house, bottom line. And I'm the first one on the scene, and I don't want to see somebody dead in the car. Last week, we had 3 little kids in the back seat of a car that had been smashed really well, because the lady said she wasn't from here, and she, it ended up her just running head on into this car. That's the issue. What do we do to stop or to slow down people from getting hit? It doesn't matter if it's 15 or 20 cars coming, it only takes one to kill somebody.
Yeah, this
So-
isn't gonna be the end-all, be-all.
No.
If someone runs the stop sign or misjudges someone coming, but for what you have today, there is a lot of decision-making process that's having to have with 3 different people coming to that intersection at the same time. And, who's supposed to stop, who has the right of way, and it's not very obvious. Either one of these options, it makes it very obvious who has the right of way and who's supposed to be stopping at that intersection.
And you
Not
just
saying
hope
it's
somebody
going-
turns on their blinker.
Right. Saying it's not gonna fix anything, that you still won't have 0 accidents, but it does, at least from the driver decision-making process, and that's why TechStop brought it up, is it does clear a lot of that cloudiness that occurs right now at that intersection.
And this Plan B, Plan A, there is no traffic calming whatsoever from 1704 to Main Street. At least with this one, there is some traffic calming both ways.
And I'm fully supportive. I'm just trying to look ahead for other things coming up. And I think to Arthur's point, I'm wondering, can we go ahead and say, yes, we're in support of Plan B and we want you to lower the speed limit? We don't want it 40 around that curve.
No, we can't say that. It's the same process. Yeah, they have to do a traffic count. It's got to meet the same warrants. We can ask them to look at it.
Right.
But it's not, I think that's one of the most important things that, I got a letter today about 290 and how the city should make a bunch of changes out there. Legally, we just can't, council doesn't have that authority. Even if we all agree it should be 25 through there, you can't do that legally. So we can certainly ask them to take a look at that, but we are kind of at their mercy, and they are at the mercy of the manual uniform traffic control devices. They have to follow that process as well. But yeah, I think, as the mayor said, we're just in that spot in Elgin with a lot of things. We've got to, wish we had the ability to think longer term, but truthfully, we've got to address problems the way we can now. Our police station, that's not, as we've said, that's not going to be a police station that'll last us for 30 or 40 years, but we got to get done what we can get done, and I think this is an improvement. It's not the end all, but we're ready to move forward on it.
and then just one other question, future thinking. That development that's going out there, is it gonna have access to 1704? Is that gonna be?
No.
No, okay. It's not.
Which
If you're
development?
talking about Trinity
Trinity
Ranch does not have an out road
to
that will
1704.
connect to 1704.
At this point,
Well, yeah,
I think it
there's,
will.
there's one tract of land that has frontage on 1704 and connects to Trinity Ranch. Hasn't been a while, but early on, we heard from that owner about potential commercial project, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, that development today isn't gonna have access, but basically it's designed.
Yeah.
Some of the streets lead out into that next property, so it only takes that next property to develop on 1704. You'll see that traffic come out there.
You still stop at record stop signs.
Yeah, they still have to stop.
So if they're looking for our endorsement, do you need a motion?
Yes, we just, it's not, we don't need any legislation, we just need council's endorsement of this plan. We get that on the record, and that's all they need.
I would make that motion to endorse Plan B and encourage.
Can I just ask one last thing? So, right there where it says the R30, and then you have your car to the left, so how do we have an individual driving straight all the way to Main Street to 1704?
This way, stop,
No, coming this way though.
come down here and stop and turn this way.
Oh, okay,
It'd be a left-hand turn.
gotcha.
That's what I
You
So
can
I
still
need to
turn
go-
left right there, right.
Got it now. Sorry, good,
Yeah,
good to
so-
roll.
Dennis made the motion and Frazier seconded. We will begin with Dennis,
Dennis, yes.
Frazier, yes.
McShane, yes.
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Blaine, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
I'll just say once again, as usual, good work by Bo on this. And the council too. I know when we saw the first plan, we were anxious to make something happen, but I think being patient and working through this, we ended up with a better plan for everybody, so. Let's keep going, Mayor, if that's all right. Just quickly, just wanted to mention, we continue to keep our guys out picking up storm debris. We're closing in on 5,000 cubic yards of debris collected. We think we've covered pretty much half of the town now. I mean, as far as surface area, from my own personal observation, I think we've picked up more than half the debris out, but we're staying with it. Obviously, our team is getting a little stretched out, but we're determined to complete our commitment. Our new wood chipper is on the road and working well, and we're excited about that. As you know, Main Street got cleaned up, so I think some of our visible areas we've addressed, but we're just going to stay at it until we get done. I know some people are getting anxious, but we're doing our best to get every way we can. And I think, by and large, we continue to see the vast majority of people being willing to be patient. And I know in my neighborhood, there's still a lot of debris out, but nobody's yelling at me about it yet. So we appreciate everybody's patience, and just another example of what we've said all along. We think Elgin had a lot more of this debris than maybe any other city in the area, so it's natural. It's taken us a little more time to get caught up, but I don't know if anybody had any particular questions about that. Just want to continue to lift up and encourage our guys, Michael's leadership on this and our team. As you can imagine, today wasn't a great day to be out there in the drizzle and the rain picking up branches, but they were still doing it. So really appreciate the effort and appreciate them hanging in there. We had our groundbreaking yesterday, which was very nice and had a good representation, and glad everybody here on council made it. So that sent a really good message, I think, to everybody in the community. I hope everybody could feel the excitement, the appreciation. We're anxious to get going. But I did want to mention that we're, as you might have noticed, we thought we were going to have the final vote, final price on the project this evening. Our bids came in, and frankly, they came in higher than what we were anticipating. So we've been really working hard to work on that issue to get the overall cost for the building down to where we had hoped it would be without compromising the project. But we're kind of coming down to some final decisions that we frankly we want to make group decisions on with the council. So I talked to the mayor about this earlier today, and we'd like to have a work session sometime between now and our next meeting, which is what, April 4th? So Jennifer will be reaching out to you, and we'd sure like to have the whole council there. We'll have our whole team there, but it's an issue where it's kind of coming down to what can we afford, what can we leave out, what can we afford not to leave out, the project, and we'll want council to be in on that. So if we can have that work session and make those decisions, then we'll be prepared to come back on April 4th with final approval of the total guaranteed maximum price. Now, if you recall, because of the way we did the bids, we did them in two sections, so council's already approved the initial work. So this won't delay that work. The work's starting this week on the foundation and the initial work. But we do have some final decisions to make, and so we don't want to bring those issues forward the same night we're asking council to vote on the final approval of the contract. So we'll be reaching out and figuring out when the best day and time we can get that work session together. We'll start doing that tomorrow. And that's all I had on my report, Mayor, unless anybody had anything that's not on the agenda. Well, when we say we, that's going to be you tomorrow. You'll need to run around the block with everybody and see what days will work for everybody, day and time.
Okay, the consent agenda, we have the city council minutes from March 7th. Consider waiving the open container for Luna Market happening on June 2nd. And the resolution requesting Texas legislature to direct funds for broadband to continue doing what they've been doing. A resolution, City of Elgin authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement, advanced water well technologies for well repairs. And then we have a resolution suspending the May 1st, 2023 effective date of proposal for CenterPoint Energy Resources. Co-op, okay, that kind of ran crooked there off my paper, okay. Gas, South Texas Division to implement interim GRIP rate adjustments for gas utility investment, 2023. Anyone want to pull anything from?
I don't want to pull anything, but
Oh, okay.
writing a letter to the legislature, is that part of that getting money, attention to get money over here?
Yes.
So for the broadband, is that what you're?
Broadband.
Yes, yeah. Supposedly, they're not putting as much into what they've done in the past. So I was contacted and asked if we would get letters of support or resolutions to say we still want that money.
Yeah, we may be seeing more of those, because if you watch the news, the state is just swimming in extra money this year, and so everybody's going to be lining up for requesting funding, so.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve all 5 items on the consent agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Frazier, we'll begin with Mayor Pro Tem Frazier.
Frazier, yes.
Shan, yes?
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Klein, yes?
Monado, yes.
Dennis, yes.
New business. Okay, the first one we have is to consider request to name the library conference from room Al Guerrero Memorial Boardroom.
Thank you, Mayor. This item was a request that came from the library board and library staff, but we felt it necessary that the council endorse something like this before we went ahead and did it. So Amy was going to just make a couple comments about Mr. Guerrero.
So I think some of you may already be familiar with Al, although he did pass away quite some time ago, actually just before this building was finished. He was an incredibly integral part of the development of the library as it transitioned from a nonprofit-run independent organization in a storefront downtown to a department within the city, ultimately using city facilities, and growing that collection and growing its presence in the community. And he was extremely well respected and He was really also obviously a critical part of this structure and the overall support that led to a successful bond election to build the library. And so he's had his portrait up at the library ever since he passed away. And the library board, in having some general discussions, landed on that it would be appropriate to name the conference room. We have a small meeting room, seats about 8 people, and keep his portrait's been in various places, but it's in the meeting room, so we'd have his portrait. We'll have a nice small plaque that shares a brief story of his involvement, and be able to recognize his dedicated work. And there may be additional pieces that council members might want to share.
So I think if we're so inclined, just a simple voice vote endorsing this request by the library board is sufficient.
Make a motion.
Chuck. All right,
Second.
and Joy seconds. Begin with Chuck.
Swain, yes?
Maldonado, yes.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes.
McShane, yes.
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Okay, the next one is a resolution of the City of Elgin authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Lone Star Site Work LLC for construction services related to Roy Rivers Road Phase 3 Extension Project and making certain findings related thereto.
Thank you, Mayor. This is routine authorization of a contract for this extension of Roy Rivers Road. As you can see, it's highlighted here on red in our new business park, or our business park, I should say. This is a project that was funded partially through the 2021A certificates of obligation, but is paid for by the EDC. And we also received a $1 million grant on this project, well, the utilities part of this project, right, from the state. So it's kind of unlike, although we're essentially building at the same time, the utilities and the road construction are kind of two different contracts. So, but it's taken us a little while to get started, but we're ready to go. This is a road that Carlane Industries is depending on us to get done so they can have a way to get to their business when they open business. But the contract bid actually came in under our most recent estimate, so we just need council's authority to move forward. And got the team here to answer any questions if anybody has any. And I've got it right there, right, the highlighted part. We're going down to the railroad and to the cul-de-sac, but not the northern part yet. Okay. That's down in the corner, yeah.
Chuck, you had a
Sorry.
Well, just a quick question. I was reading the other pieces that went with it, and it said may have to come back for additional budget requests for later on. That's just a routine statement?
Yeah, yeah. We don't anticipate this here, and we might mention too, this road is obviously crucial to Jericho too, and David, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Where are they at on their submission?
Jericho,
Yeah,
they're still on the site plan submittal, and their building plans are on hold until the site development plan is approved.
but they've submitted both.
Yes.
And we're getting close, right?
Okay.
Closer, yes.
Yeah, okay,
Maybe I'll leave you alone then.
okay.
For once, something came in under bid.
Yeah, right, I was about to say.
Thank you.
Can I do it again?
I make a motion, we approve this?
Okay,
One second.
nice. Motion's made by Dennis, second by Brazier. We'll begin with Dennis.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes.
McShane, yes.
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Swain, yes?
Maldonado, yes.
You'll have a house to go through now, right? With the other part.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, now, number 3, an ordinance of the city of Elgin establishing an ad valorem tax limitation for residential homestead property owners of the city of Elgin who are disabled or 65 years of age or older, providing for definitions, providing savings and severability clause, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item that we've discussed before, and I guess I can't remember if it first came up with this, our most recent conversation, I should say, with this council or since y'all took office, but we did have a serious conversation about it a year ago, but approximately a year ago, but at that time realized we had passed the deadline for making a decision about increasing exemptions or the tax freeze. And so we brought it back now in a timely manner. And if council wants to proceed with this to have effect in the coming year, then we need to make a decision by July 1st. But I assume you had a chance to review the memo that I'd written. We've been in, I got a lot of good feedback from the county tax assessor and advice. I will say in my experience, tax limitations is that's really legally what it's called, but it's commonly known as a freeze, aren't typically real common amongst cities, but they certainly are authorized by the law. The city of Bastrop actually has had a tax freeze in place for quite a while. Currently, we do have an exemption for this same group of people, of taxpayers, to receive a $15,000 exemption now. But the council can set a freeze or a limitation on taxes that reviews this year's valuation and next year's valuation if we implemented it now, and that would be the amount to set the freeze. As discussed in my memo, it's important to understand that the amount of taxes for people that are eligible, the tax freezes, but the valuation does not. The valuation continues to grow or change with the marketplace. So that if you're eligible, grandma's eligible for the freeze and she gets it for 5 or 10 years and then she passes away, her property has continued to increase in value. So when that exemption comes off, that property immediately goes on the rolls at the current set value. So it's an important distinction to understand as we implement it. It doesn't freeze their valuation, just the tax amount. There's no real limit on the exemption part versus a tax freeze, but we did find out it's important to note that typically what's unique about this is the fact that the law says that we can't go back. Typically, a new council can always change the mind of the previous council on most things, but in this case, so it would be, if we make a decision to go with the freeze, we can't repeal it or rescind it later. I think in my own opinion, one of the things we struggled with before was understanding potential revenue impacts on if we did the exemption of the freeze, and I think from that, purely from that standpoint, a freeze is more workable for the city because there's not really a true loss of revenue. What you're quote unquote losing is potential future revenues that you might have otherwise received, as opposed if we increase the exemption, then that will represent, in a number of cases, lower taxes next year than what folks paid this year. So there would be actually an adverse impact on general fund revenue. And then, I hope you can see this, but it's very little, but I'll focus in on what I think are the bigger ones here. But as I said, I think if we do a freeze and keep our exemption at 15,000, then frankly, those will be the best tax relief of any city in Bastrop County. I always just think it's important to make sure we realize there's a reason why all the school districts already have a freeze in place. They're compelled to do that by state law, so I don't want, we've heard that from people, that the school district has a freeze, why doesn't the city? Well, the school district has a freeze because they have to, not because they made the decision to do that. In Smithville, they offer both a $10,000 exemption and a tax freeze. In Bastrop, they offer a freeze, but no tax exemption. So, like I said, we're having this discussion in a timely manner so we can, it's not like the ordinance is written as if we're going to implement a tax freeze or a tax limitation. But if we're not necessarily compelled to adopt it tonight, we still have, if council's inclined to want to think about it a little more, we can come, all right, well, I'm just pointing that out, that's, if there's more discussion needed, that's fine. At the same time, I don't know that, other than answering questions, I'm confident we've covered the story. I don't think there's a whole lot more to say.
I do have one question. We talked about if we implement the freeze, it is permanent. If we come back and remove the freeze, but everybody who's got it will still keep it forever, but we could take it away for new people?
I don't think that's what it means. I think you can.
I mean, once we start it, we're stuck.
Yeah, once you offer it, and again, you can, the exemptions different, that's totally council's discretion. So if this had an adverse impact later, you could always come back and eliminate the exemption, but once we offer the freeze, it's permanent.
And staff has done the numbers, and we can live with the freeze and/or a recommended exemption.
Well, that's what I was saying. It's really, I think part of, it's really difficult to project what the revenue impacts would be, because it would start with having to know who's turning 65 or who's 65, and cross-reference that with who's property owner of record. And so I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying take a really deep dive on, I don't know if the staff would do it. We'd probably have to hire somebody to come in to do that analysis. But even then, theoretically, that changes every year. Somebody passes, somebody moves out of town, somebody sells their house. And both ways, though. It doesn't mean necessarily you're, at least that's what we've heard from the tax assessor, that in a lot of ways, once you get it in place, they see a lot of newly eligible people come on at the same time, a corresponding number of for whatever reason, people lose that exemption too. And so and again, like I said, I think we probably could come up with a number on the exemption part. I mean, truthfully, we could probably sit down with Sue and she could tell me how old everybody was on the tax rolls, but
then at the same time, you'd have to have a crystal ball to know how much property is gonna evaluate and increase over the years.
And again, the freeze is even harder. It's harder to project what the valuation is going to be, what the taxes are going to be, and how to turn that into lost revenue.
So do the
So this
citizens
is,
have
this
to?
is, this is 8 years coming.
Mhm.
And because one of the first things that I talked about when Tom came on here was, what can we do?
Mhm.
And we weren't in this situation, and every year we revisited because we didn't have a lot of money when he came. And we're in this spot. And so I revisited every year, and, last year was okay. So like Tom said, because I've gone over it in my head over and over and over again, that it really, truly is a wash, because, and I think I said it last month, even though it sounds bad, I'm not trying to breathe the dead, I mean, just, but just as many people that turn 65, you have the same amount typically that are gonna come back on, because remember, the key part is the appraisals don't stop. And so then you're right back in line to capture that expense. What, the main thing with me and the freeze is because it hits two of the, I feel like, greatest pillars of our community, which are our senior citizens and our disabled veterans, because they would qualify under the disabled part of it. And if we can give those two groups of people a little bit of aid and relief, then that makes it okay with me. That in my head, after I kept talking to Tom and bothering Tom and saying, okay, now, that's where and after we started talking about the freeze more and more, it really is, it kind of just becomes a wash. And so it doesn't escalate on any future councils, so they don't have to worry about that. And there you go.
Yeah, and I think Sue made a good point that if we were ever going to do this in Elgin, we're in financially, obviously. We were forever up to now really more focused on every dollar, and not that we have every dollar we want now, but we're in a much stronger position, particularly with new development, where we can absorb whatever this hit is, I think, without much trouble.
So-
One last question. We do the freeze, we do it, the individuals pass away, they sell the house. They don't get any taxed anymore by selling the house. It's who buys the house that's gonna have the future increase in tax. Right. So the people who selling the house because they just passed away are not having to eat the tax bill for all the
No,
stuff.
there's no rollback element to it. And I don't know if you were gonna ask this, but my understanding is the freeze is just like the exemption, you have to apply for it. And because there's still, a small percentage of people that are probably eligible for this exemption now that the city doesn't go through and hand those out. It's still on the property owner to file for it. And in that scenario, Chuck, it's possible an old person can buy the new house from the old person and they'll be eligible, so,
Right, yeah.
so it wouldn't, but yeah, there's no rollback where
They would buy it, it would be appraised at what their taxes.
yeah, well,
what they paid
again, the
for it.
tax wouldn't have any, that value wouldn't have anything to do with it. It would just be whether or not they're eligible for the freeze.
So I'm in support of it. I think, and I shared this with you, I think I feel a little blind to know what the fiscal implication is. And I don't know that we need to hire a demographer, but it seems that we could do some basic math to get, just if this were, for example, to go into effect today. I looked up the Elgin population, what the demographics are. There's about, I'm going to say, about, let's call it 1,000 people who are over 65 in Elgin. And so then we say, well, how many of those are homeowners? I don't know, but let's say 75% of them are, just to make numbers easy. So that's about, what, 75 or 750 people? And let's say, what's the average house now valued at in Elgin? I mean, probably $300,000 is what I'm guessing in this market. And so it just seems like if we could do that, we could then back that out and then take the tax rate and just kind of see this is what numbers we're talking about, just to be eyes wide open about this.
You're not, once we freeze it, we're not losing any money, we're just losing future money.
Right. But I think you could use today's numbers and just give you an example. Like if this were in effect now, this would be just the numbers or the revenue that wouldn't come in, just to know that. Because right now, I feel like we're saying, well, we can't do that. We can't project that, but then we're deciding on an ordinance that cannot be changed.
But I think, I follow your logic, but I think that the fact is that next year, the house might appraise at 315 rather than 300, so the difference will be on that $15,000, not on some huge amount. And so I think that, and that's just not revenue we lost. I mean, people are still going to be paying on the $300 or $300,000 valuation of the house.
I I can do that math. If you like.
I mean,
I'm not sure that,
call
I-
me crazy, but,
no, I'm just
I
not
think
sure
it's
that
helpful.
That's gonna produce a real number that'll be meaningful.
Well, I mean, I don't know if we're talking in terms of future revenue. I don't know if we're talking about $100,000, if we're talking about, $5.5 million like that. I don't know.
I don't think 750 homes is the number. I think it's much less than that, because you have, multiple family members and the residents, so. I think it's a lower number than,
And again, in my head, the reason why I didn't demand numbers was because it basically becomes a wash. Just because you have
a rolling population.
oh, that's nice, a rolling population.
That's a good one. But it's fair to say, in any scenario, we're talking about less tax dollars. So
And I
that
think,
is-
and
that is true.
again, I'm supportive of it. I generally like, I think, to be informed fully of what that is. I mean, I think, we're all, I think we all voted in support of the police station, but we also had numbers in front of us to know this is what it's gonna be.
We were spending money then. We're not spending money now.
Well, I know we're not spending money, but
I'll
I
run those
just,
numbers for you. I wouldn't, however it comes out, I wouldn't want that to be said, this is the number, because I just don't think there's a way to accurately project this, because there's so many moving targets.
well, again, I can go home and play with some numbers, but my guess is we're in baby boomers right now. That's probably a larger amount of people over the next 20 years who are going to be owning houses. And, what is, I mean,
I think that there's a possibility that Al may be able to help us out and maybe give us a number that the school district would say is their delta.
and I don't know if that's information that the tax office is public information, like how many over 65 owners are there in the city?
Well, if
It's
it-
gonna be a point in time, right? Because we have people moving in constantly. So you're gonna get a snapshot in time. So still even that isn't extremely accurate, correct? Right? Because we've got people moving in every day, and that could be any age they are. So as long as you understand that at that point, it's that point in time, and it might not be the exact same tomorrow even. So,
But we can try that too. We can reach out to the school district or the tax office and see if they've got any information that would help us.
And again, it's not that I'm not in favor of it, I think having some sort of point-in-time number is just helpful.
So where are we on the timeline, Tom?
Like I said, my understanding is we just have to have the ordinance to them prior to July 1.
July 1?
Yeah.
So we can beat this to death next month and then come up with a solution or a vote.
Well,
yes or no.
baseline numbers, just some rough, because we know they're gonna be rough.
Well, I'm all for this. I'm just scared to death we can't take something back. That's what I'm scared of. Once you go down this road, you're going down it.
And I think that's just part of it, is like, we see this wide open. If it says, if our rough numbers say it's anywhere for going $70,000 to $500,000, and again, I am making up numbers, but if we see that head on and we say, yes, we're making this decision, and we see that, then we, I feel like I
We only-
personally have made a decision that I can, live with.
As long as we understand, usually when I show you those numbers, I'm real confident in them. That's all I'm saying about this. I don't think there's a scenario we can be real confident, so if that's the premise we want to go into, sure, we'll see what we can come up with.
Well, can we, so that we don't delay this forever and ever, I mean, is it possible to say, you know, can we, I don't know if we need to make a motion or just say, can we?
It has to be tabled because it's on the agenda.
I think technically speaking, if the council tables it, then it has to appear on the next agenda.
Okay, well, that was my question, is if it can appear
Yeah, so,
as
Does it
opposed.
give you enough time to make
yeah,
it?
yeah, again, as long as we're talking about rough
We're talking rough.
estimates. Okay, yeah, we can,
Everybody clear, we're
We can do
talking
that.
rough numbers, okay? Got it, rough numbers.
That new math.
Rough numbers, yeah, that new math.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so we need a motion to table it so that we can move on.
It's yours, because you're the, it's you. It's you.
Okay, well, what's quorum? I mean,
What do you mean?
what's that?
Five?
We're just gonna table it for
We're just gonna table it to next.
well, I guess I'm saying if somebody also wants to call a vote on it.
No, if you want to see the numbers and we have time, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But we have to make sure that we still have time, because I'm not gonna let this lapse, like we did last year.
No, that's why I want to say, like, I want to table it, but I don't want to table it for 3 months. I want to table it
No, it
to
has to
just,
come
Comes
back
back on the next meeting.
yeah, exactly. And
Yes.
let's look at those rough numbers, and that way we say roughly this is, and we don't know, we don't have a crystal ball, but this is what it is for the public record. We made that decision, and I think we can feel good with that. Okay, then I will make the motion to table it and discuss it at our next meeting.
Do we have a second? Chuck seconds. Okay, we'll begin with Councilman Kavanagh.
Kaznowski, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Swain, yes.
Malnado, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Frazier, yes.
McShane, yes. All righty, and there is no executive session, so any announcements? No announcements?
What?
Oh, no. Oh,
Man,
really?
jeez. All right,
Yes, we do.
Don't
We just
we
wanna
have
figure
any
correctly.
information on the wood chipper? Didn't we have an issue with that?
No, we got it going. It's
It's
good.
all fixed.
Yeah, we had
User error.
well,
It was all
Not
fixed.
initially,
What was
but
the
we-
issue with it?
I don't really know, we just couldn't get it, couldn't start it and then stop, and the guy came back, we've got it running now. It's running now.
Brand new, and
Yeah, that's why we
they didn't put the right fuel in there.
We have
So-
warranty.
Mayor, I have something I want to say real quick. I took the opportunity to go out to the dedication service of the home out on,
Oh, that was on Young's Prairie?
yeah, on Young's
Yeah.
Prairie.
Mhm.
And that was really a great experience.
Yeah, they have one
And
tomorrow
so,
too. I'm
Yeah,
trying to get
they're building 5 homes. The
Mhm.
Bastrop County Disaster Group that we actually contributed money to as a council.
Mhm.
And so it was good to go out there and see what we were a part of. The Mennonite group comes in, and they have been working for 7 months to clear what was really destroyed out there. And they built a house, and the lady was ready to move in. And it was really a great story. It was, a lady had been in the hospital for surgery, and she came home 2 days later. This storm comes up, and her son or son-in-law, I think it was, actually went to the house and said, "We need to get you out of this house, there's a storm coming." They live in Hutto, okay? And so, she said, no, I'm gonna be fine, and all this, and, it's like, every storm that came along, everybody wrote it out, but he insisted that she
Wow.
come with him, and after they left, half hour after they left, the house was totally destroyed,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but they built that house, finished that house for her to come home for her surgery, so,
That's great.
That's
yeah.
great.
It's really, I mean, before, before the storm. They had built it
Oh.
for her.
And
And,
then-
and so now she's actually getting to move
Move
into this
into it,
new
yeah.
house. It was really great.
Yeah, the Wilsons will be having theirs tomorrow at 2:30, so I plan on hitting that one.
Yeah,
Hopefully. I need bastrop earlier, I think.
yeah, yeah.
All righty. It is